any company that really now has usually, I can say easily, maybe more than 20 employees. Now, in many countries that I've worked in, many many companies over 100 employees don't even have HR departments or HR, division.
Yeah, they don't even have the processes.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like there's no guidebook. There's no, who do I go to when there's an issue? There's no reporting and accountability.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that drove me crazy is like who to go to for what. I mean, that should be a very simple thing. But what does HR in these even big companies, what does HR deal with the most? They do hiring and firing, but nothing about maintaining.
Or sign in and sign out.
Yeah.
Maintaining has just now started taking about last 10, 15 years in importance in the HR world is, I mean, there's a lot of hiring and firing. Now, retention,
unfortunately,
it costs me much more.
Building confidence in capabilities is the least practice. Well, in fact, building confidence and capability contributes greatly to the brand, and the brand contributes greatly to the employee.
Absolutely.
Let me use one great example for purpose. If we look at it from an organization sense and market sense, take Apple and BlackBerry.
Yeah.
BlackBerry was driving for what? Technology and sales. Apple has had a much greater purpose, which is impacting the world, changing the way we live. So how did that? Here's a question that maybe some people don't see it, but I will ask this: how did that affect Apple as an organization, and how did that affect the market? Since Apple had a greater purpose, while BlackBerry didn't have a purpose other than having a great technology that serves instantaneously what it served back then.
I think BlackBerry had a fantastic technology. It was delivering. It was never over promising and under delivering. It was always delivering at its point. It had purpose as well. It had very strong purpose as well.
Corporate purpose.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the thing. It couldn't break the corporate purpose boundary. Yeah. And what they failed, which you bring back to the very beginning, which is important to understand, business and brand.
Yes.
They couldn't separate the two.
Yes.
They were business. They didn't take brand into association. Brand is people. It doesn't mean that you're actually working in a corporation.
But let me go back to that purpose, which I like. BlackBerry, corporate purpose. Apple
Lifestyle, which affects business, brand, and at the top from down.
Yeah. So, and not realizing that there was a macro.
But the greater purpose of Apple was improving the lives of many. Which it did.
Like Phil was saying, it's going from the top down.
And it did. Yeah. So the corporate purpose was internal. Apple's purpose was internal and external. Yeah. And that's what I'm trying to say. How Apple went about their purpose versus how BlackBerry went about purpose affected the market, and how we buy into the idea and the value. While you said the technology was great for BlackBerry, absolutely agree with you. But that technology could have lasted longer and evolved if there was a much greater purpose.
Yeah. And recognizing like those big shifts that we talk about, right? That, that line, like I remember when BlackBerries were really popular, I was starting my career at Goldman, it was...
People were buying BlackBerry just to get on BD.
Yeah, it was, okay, here's my life in this frame, and when I go home, I'm not using the BlackBerry, right? Mm. And I think Apple was able to see that there was this now gap blurring between your professional life and your personal life, right? Like those things were becoming one and the same. Yeah. Mm. And so the design aesthetic, the way it looked and felt, the functionality of it was meant to reach everybody,
right?
Regardless of how you saw yourself in a corporate frame or not.
Right.
And I think the corporate technology of BlackBerry was very much focused on the phone was in and of itself a silo.
Yeah.
It was very securitized. You couldn't do everything with it.
Right.
You felt like a lot of companies issued them to you, so it wasn't yours. Right? There was a lot of interesting things around.
Yeah. There was no ownership, which meant no lifestyle changes.
Which meant no lifestyle. Yeah. The BlackBerry went in the
trash when we left.
Right? Like until it was ready to move into another
positioning.
thing.
That's more of a positioning because Apple's positioning is lifestyle.
Yeah.
Well,
BB had a positioning of corporate, but they missed the fact that lifestyle supersedes corporate.
It had a positioning of corporate. Apple's lifestyle. The difference is Apple had a greater purpose. BlackBerry
had
very limited purpose, which threatened the growth. Enormous growth over there. Take another example, what we discussed earlier. Smartphone as a category, and mobile as a category. Get Nokia in the middle. Nokia treated itself as a business, and it was absolutely phenomenal.
And Nokia, to me, if you ask me, Nokia was a pure lifestyle kind of thing that was actually promoting.
But the purpose of Nokia was driven out of the product itself.
Mm-hmm.
All right, which is you're able to text whatever you call.
Yeah.
I'll forget about the positioning. I'm not even going to get there. When the mobile industry started declining, and there's a new industry that came in, which is called the smartphone, Nokia decided to evolve into the smartphone under the window operating system, with the Nokia name. If Nokia as an organization had a purpose, they would understand that their stakeholders, all of them, including internal and external, that they would evolve from a Nokia, which is a name resonating with mobile call and text, to much greater, and they will introduce a name. But because it's a business and not a brand, it's a business and not a brand, it drove the business functional ideas of it. Now, many can ask me or can argue with me and tell me, are you crazy? Nokia, of course, is a brand.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but it wasn't operated as a brand. It was operated as a business.
Yeah. People confuse fame and brand.
Mm.
I mean, I'm sorry.
No.
Brand is something meaningful.
So but that back to that argument about B&B, and I think what one thing could a B&B done, for example, in a kind of a way to prevent their, and I think that was crucial. It could be debated in many ways, but is to keep their system, especially their B&B, closed.
Yeah.
As they thought that would be a selling tool that would push for greater sales at the B&B. Whereas if they'd opened it to upcoming people and to increase the crowd, to say, hey, okay, I'm opening B&B to Apple now, for example, you would have had that massive exodus. You would have had a more bigger influence on suddenly B&B. You would have had your crowd. Then you could have affected your crowd with all variations of the brand and so forth and kept the business alive. I truly, honestly believe that. So I think that also goes back to the mindset of like seclusion, what do you call it? Secrecy and keeping things. Now we're seeing all levels of businesses, brand is opening up. Everything's becoming open. That's how you become a brand.
But here it is. What drives value creation? Purpose. If BlackBerry had a greater purpose, value creation would be constant. With Apple, unfortunately, there's two different characters with Apple. There's Steve Jobs and there's Tim Cook. Yeah. Tim Cook is not a value creator. He's a tweaker. Yeah. And if he tweaks it, he's an operation guy. He tweaks within.
Duke guy, but an operations guy.
He tweaks within. The other hand, you had a nutcase who actually was driving innovation. Not literally innovative, but he sees things overseas, he patents them, works for him. He does it better than they did.
Plus, he had a crack team on the side that had nothing to do with the operations. That was always doing crazy things.
Yes. So he was driving that, but he had a greater purpose, his purpose also contributed to Apple. Yeah. And him and Apple became one.
Yeah.
He's gone, and everything that has to do with Apple's innovation has changed. I think Apple should revisit their brand. Absolutely, I think they should revisit their brand, reposition themselves, because they cannot live up to the standards or the expectation that Steve Jobs built.
Overpromise, underdeliver.
We all here are always seeing Apple 10, Apple 9, Apple 11, Apple 12.
Just Apple, the numbers don't change anything.
Yeah, iPhone Max and so on.
That's not what's going to move the dial long term and connect them to this idea of what is the purpose of the brand? Where does it exist in the world beyond just the shareholders? What do people think about holistically or individually when